Hello, and a very warm welcome to Cultural Communication Confidence with me, Victoria Reynoldson, and a very warm welcome to episode 30, which is all about we don't have to agree. Now, disagreements happen all the time, and I remember when I came across a particular quote last year in some training that I was doing, which really resonated when thinking about this idea of disagreeing well. And I'm going to read that quote to you now. It's not that I have to agree with everything you say, but I should attempt to at least understand it. For the opposite of mutual understanding is, quite simply, war. And that quote is from Ken Wilber. That quote really resonated with me because it felt so powerful. It is absolutely about understanding other people and how people see things. And the opposite can be quite extreme. Even if you're in your situations, it's not about war, but actually it is about team conflict internally. Or it could even be about conflict with your customers or your suppliers. These are quite serious situations and clearly not great for morale, for the team, and also could be very detrimental to you achieving your business performance results. I feel that we need to find different ways to disagree, explore different ways of coming at it. Too often, I find that people are coming at it trying to persuade the other person to agree with them. They have their point of view, their argument, and they're pushing and pushing, trying to get the other person to agree with them. However, the other person is doing exactly the same. They're potentially pushing and pushing, trying to get the other person to agree with them. You can see the problem. It ends up being a situation where you're like two magnets which are trying to, at the opposite ends and trying to come together, but always repelling each other. And it doesn't end up in a good situation. I wanted to share with you today some thoughts on this idea of we don't have to agree, but finding the best ways forward when we've experienced these situations. So to start off with, it starts with good listening. Listening, of course, is where it's at. If we have to really understand what's going on, then we should speak less and focus on what is actually being said to us and what is perhaps not being said to us. I did an episode recently about listening, and I will put a link to that in the show notes below. But hopefully you can see that taking that pause and actually listening can really help us. The next idea connected to this is we need to assume we don't know necessarily everything that's going on. So for me, it's actually really important that we step out of the issue and focus on the other person or people. See them really and see them what's kind of happening with their communication style. How are they behaving? What's going on with what they're saying, what they're not saying, and with their non-verbal communication, their body language. This can give us lots of clues about what's happening and is a vital part of empathy, where we're moving out of the disagreement zone and seeing the person that is in front of us and what they're focusing on. Empathy is also about exploring motivations and intentions. So often we assume we know what they are because we see the world through our own point of view, from our own point of view. I sometimes describe it as that you're wearing a pair of glasses and the way you see the world is completely different from how other people see the world because they're wearing their own pair of glasses. So when we experience communication styles and behaviors that we are trying to interpret, we may not be interpreting them in the right way. This is where CQ or cultural intelligence can be so important, particularly in global contexts, where we really need to understand what does the communication approach mean? what is it that people are trying to get at, and what could their behaviors mean, which has a different interpretation in our own culture. So once we have the listening, we've moved away from our assumptions and built the empathy, then we can clarify. Now, this is an important point. We may think we understand what the issues really are, but clarifying, playing back what we have heard, and checking in that we have the right understanding is an incredibly important part of disagreeing well. Then really think about potential solutions. Now, it may be that you can't get to a full agreement, but it may be there is something in what you can do together. One of those ideas is about laddering out. So rather than focusing on a small part that you need to get agreement on, trying to ladder out to see if there is an objective, a common objective that could work for you both. Agreement is so much easier when we are aligned on the objective and we understand what it is we're both trying to achieve. If we can ladder out to that point and understand it, then we are much more likely to find the solution. And then the final idea is that if there are no common objectives, if there is something which is really not moving forward and you want to find a way through, then sometimes starting small can help. So offering a pilot or a test and seeing if the other party is willing to agree to this, to see if you can bring in the results and show that it would work to then scale up. So as we come towards the end of this episode, let me ask you about your own disagreement style. How do you approach this today? What is it you've heard today that could be helpful in your approach? And how about this reframe of that we don't have to agree, but we can see the person in front of us and what might be motivating to them? I would love to know your thoughts on this particular topic. So please feel free to reach out to me. The best place to do that is on LinkedIn. My personal profile over there is Victoria Reynoldson. And if this topic about disagreement is really interesting to you and actually useful to you, and you would like to learn more about this and explore more around different communication approaches, then please do get in touch to talk to me either about my individual and team communication programs or about cultural intelligence, CQ, particularly if you're working in global teams. And if you have found today's episode particularly valuable, I would really appreciate it if you could share it with somebody else, a friend, a coworker, a colleague, somebody who would find these particular insights helpful. Thank you so much for listening to Cultural Communication Confidence, and I look forward to seeing you next time.